So what do you do when your negative thoughts simply won't leave you alone? You see, sometimes we can get lost in this story in our heads. And this is like drowning in the sea of life, drowning in the mind, becoming lost in madness. And this is a very scary place to be in, because we feel that we're losing our minds, that there is no escape. Sometimes we can feel hopeless, but you see, if we want to escape this madness, we must attack the problem at the root. And the root is always identity. Because it is who we believe we are that produces the thoughts that we have. It produces what we choose to focus our attention, our minds on. And what you will find is that the story playing in your head, the thoughts that you have, they always attack your personal identity. They always attack who you believe you are. And so you believe in them, and through your belief, you give the thoughts your energy. And this is all just trickery. We are seduced into buying the story that our mind is telling us. And it is in taking our power away, reclaiming our power, where we no longer allow our minds to be a tyrant in our life. And without changing the underlying identity, we will continue to get pulled further down into the madness. And so we must begin questioning, why do we believe these thoughts? Maybe you understand very clearly that they are not true, and yet there is some part of you that still believes in them. Because if you did not believe in them, there would be no fear. And so we must address, who is it that is afraid of these negative thoughts? Who is it that is saying these thoughts are negative? And so there are two main ways to go about changing our identity. The first way, and the most common way, is to get very clear on who you are. Take some time to write it out. What are the characteristics of your ideal self? If you could be anybody you wanted, with anything, with any kind of traits, write that out. Look at it every day. Think about it all the time. Keep your focus on your ideal self. And when you have a thought, it will be easier to separate yourself from that thought, because the thought is no longer attacking you. It is attacking who you used to be and who you no longer are. And so you can see that the reason we believe our thoughts, the reason that we are afraid of our thoughts, is because we believe our thoughts are attacking us. But this is just a story that we believe in, because it is not the truth. And this leads us to the second way we change our identity. And very few people will be ready to hear this. But the truth is that any identity that we create is false. Because what we are in truth has no identity. All identity is created by and in the mind. But what we are comes before the mind. We are the underlying consciousness that gives rise to all experience. We are that awareness. And that awareness has no identity. It has no desires. It has no fear. Because it is eternal, and it cannot be touched by anything that the mind or the world can try and throw at it. because it is transcendent in nature. And so whether or not you hear this, it is the truth that no thought has any power over you whatsoever. And that you give your power to the thought. And unless you take your power back and reclaim yourself, your mind will continue to steal your energy. But it is not enough to know this conceptually, because I can say all day that my true nature is consciousness, but do my actions reflect my understanding? And I have never met a single person in my life whose actions reflect that understanding. Not a single person. So I say, look for yourself. If you were to close your eyes this moment, try and find the person you believe yourself to be. Where is your past? Where are your dreams? Are you your job? Are you your relationships to the people around you, your friends, your family? Are you your purpose? Are you your religious beliefs? Are you your political beliefs? Because most people act as if they are these things. Otherwise, if I question your political or religious beliefs, there would be no need for you to react if you weren't identified with them. But if I criticize your political beliefs and you get angry, it means you believe them to be part of your identity. And you can see how the identity creates suffering. But if you were to look here in this moment, you would not find any of these things. You would not find the person you believe yourself to be. Because all of these things are just a construct in our mind. And because we never stop, take some space to think about who we are, to question who we are, that we continuously live our lives in a state of reaction to the environment around us. And we believe everything is true because we have no reason not to believe. And so if you're always reacting to your thoughts, reacting to the outer environment, one of the keys to handling this is to create some space in the mind. And this is done through meditation. And so one practice you can do is that simply sit alone on your bed for a time and just allow any and all thoughts to rise up. And don't do anything. This is what is required. And so you have to ask yourself, are you able to do nothing? Does it take any effort to not do anything? Or does it only take effort to do something? And so if you answer this question honestly, then all people have access to this ability to simply watch all thoughts come and go. And what you will find is that as you are sitting there and allowing the thoughts to come up, you will have automatic reactions. But the more you continue to observe and shine your awareness on these thoughts, the less reactions that you have. And so this is a practice in awareness, in observation. And by doing this, when you go out into the world and you interact with others and you have experiences, you create a tiny bit of space between your experiences and yourself. And in that space, you will have the ability to consciously act. You will be able to respond rather than react. And so this is one of the major keys when dealing with negative thoughts, because we continuously fuel our negative thoughts by reacting to them all the time. And you see, if you're trying to go out and live your life, but you're having negative thoughts at the same time, you're being pulled in these two different directions. And eventually you'll be torn apart. It's like trying to clean the house while the house is on fire. Address the major problem first. This is why most people fail in life. It's because they are unable to focus their attention on one thing at a time. They have their attention in many different directions. So they get nothing done, they get nowhere. They just keep running on the hamster wheel, suffering the whole time. So choose one thing to focus on and get rid of all the other distractions. And find out what is the best use of your time. What will get you the farthest? What will move the needle forward? And if you have a problem as severe as OCD or negative thoughts, or whichever way you want to look at it, and I would say it's better to focus all of your attention on becoming free from this problem rather than trying to go out and live a normal life and do all the practical things that normal people do. Because all of your relationships will be affected. All of your experience will be affected. And it will rob you of your capabilities to be efficient and effective. Because there's this constant source that's siphoning your energy. And so you'll be exhausted all the time. You'll be tired. You won't be able to focus. You won't be able to sleep. And the negative effects continue to compound. And you see, when you get clear on who you are, this solves a lot more problems than just your negative thoughts. Because now that you know exactly who you are, now you can set boundaries. Now you won't tolerate certain behavior from others. You won't tolerate these negative thoughts. And you know, I'm a bit more extreme in my viewpoints, but I would say forget about the story that you tell yourself in your head. All of it. Because it's just something you choose to believe in. It's just something that helps reinforce your sense of self-identity. And all your mind does is look out into the external world for evidence to help you reaffirm your identity. So the question is, do you want to continue playing in this nonsense? Or do you want to experience life as it was intended to be experienced? To live a good life, free from so much suffering. Because most people aren't living. Most people are barely surviving. And it is no one's fault, but it is their responsibility. But most people blame their problems on something else because they create an identity, and this blame helps them to reaffirm that. This is what is dangerous about labeling yourself as having OCD or ADHD or any of these labels that are so common nowadays. Because you create an identity out of it. And like I said, your mind will search for evidence to reaffirm that identity. And so whether or not it is true it is not helpful to label yourself as these things. In a practical way, yes, it's completely fine. But you see people, and you know who they are, who create an identity out of their mental illness because they think it's cool, or they think it's, hip to have these kinds of problems, when in reality they're just too attached to their ego. So I say, give it up. Is the story in your head serving you? Is your identity that you believe in, is it serving you? Are you living the life that you want? Are you experiencing the things that bring you joy and happiness and peace? Because if you're not, then whatever identity you have obviously isn't working for you. So you can either change it and focus on becoming the ideal version of yourself, or you can choose to let go of the identity altogether. But you have to make a choice. You can't just keep living with the problems and expecting them to go away. And this is what happens a lot of the times when people have negative thoughts. They try and continue on with their life while all this madness and this noise is going on in the background. And also, when they finally do pay attention to the negative thoughts, they focus on the fear, they focus on the negativity, they focus on the resistance of not wanting to have these negative thoughts. But they never stop to think, what are these negative thoughts trying to tell me? Are they just there for no reason? Have you just accepted that you have OCD, you have a mental illness, and this is just the way it is? My negative thoughts are because of my mental illness. It can be sickening to watch and hear these kinds of identities that people have built, to listen to the ego ruminate in its stupid little stories. Because you see, if you are having constant negative thoughts, it is not because of your OCD, it's not because of your mental illness, it's because there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And by reflecting on the nature of the negative thoughts, there will often be a pattern that we can use to decipher the message that our body is trying to tell us. Because our thoughts are arising from our unconscious mind. And the thoughts come with information, but rather than trying to communicate with our bodies, we take a defensive position, or we try and attack our thoughts. And so we're at war with ourselves, when all the body was trying to do was trying to help you, because that's its job. It's trying to help you survive and keep you safe. But because the body, the unconscious mind, is blind, it's often a poor communicator. And so we have to become better listeners, so we can understand clearly what the body is trying to tell us. It's like in dreams, where all the symbols have a meaning, there's a message. But because the message is packaged in this primitive form of symbols, we often misinterpret it or just don't understand it at all. But what I find is that every time I write down my dreams and think about them, all kinds of information begins to manifest. And so it always comes down to our inability to decipher the message. And so if you're having negative thoughts, don't focus on the fear. Don't focus on being afraid of the negative thoughts. Reframe your perspective from a combative frame to a collaborative frame, and try and understand what the body is trying to tell you. Because oftentimes it is trying to convey the message that an instinct has been disturbed and that you cannot go on this way forever. It's like a check engine light. It's trying to tell you that a problem needs to be addressed, and that if you don't address it, there will be consequences. And so we really must begin to master our emotions by non-reaction, so that we can handle the situation and any problem that arises effectively. Because when you're in an emotional state, you do not see clearly. And if you do not see clearly, you cannot act effectively. And so yes, there may be a problem, and the problem may even be urgent, but this does not require us to be emotional about it. This requires us to solve the problem. And so you can ask yourself, are these emotions helping me solve the problem, or is it making it worse? And any amount of fear, guilt, shame, hatred, any negative emotion is doing nothing but to add fuel onto the fire of that burning house. And so these are generally useless emotions. To take the time to listen to your body. Don't be so reactive, so afraid of the thoughts. Listen for the message. Create some space in the mind so we're not always so reactive. And in this way we begin to master our minds. And through the mastery of our mind, we begin to master our lives.